Aman is the president of Brand Expedia Group. You want to talk a little about your...
Sure, I can share a little bit about the company. I have been with the company a little over 8 years, and the Expedia Group as a whole has many, many brands. It includes Expedia, Travelocity, Orbitz, HomeAway, I think is a more recent addition over the last couple of years. Also includes Egencia, which is a corporate travel brand. And we do about 100 billion in GBV, in gross booking value, across the company. And the division that I lead does about half of that, or at least last year did about half of that, or a little over half. The division that I lead was the division I started in about 8.5 years ago, and I started as the CTO of that division. And I never thought that a CTO could become president, but it happened because there was a strong shift in the company in terms of leadership to move Expedia to having way stronger technical bent and to see more technical people in leadership positions. So today the group I lead has the Expedia brand globally, Travelocity, Orbitz, a couple of other brands all over the world, and a couple of other businesses as well. And it's one of the best jobs in the company, so I'm super excited to have it, and I'm excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Aman. But this industry is changing like every other industry, and every change brings in a lot of opportunities for entrepreneurs, for business, for technology, and technology is a big enabler. But before we get into the technology questions, Aman, let me start with you on the business trends. You're seeing difference between kind of holidays people are choosing today compared to the yesteryears, and that's changing, right? And what related trends do you anticipate in the coming years, with the young generation, which is going to be your future customers? And what tools and technologies are you using to discover the new trends, analytics and related stuff?
Yeah, so let me give you a little bit on compared to yesteryear, and then I'll put a little bit more energy on the future, because I think that's a bit more exciting and up for debate as well. If you do a simple search for what are technology travel trends or travel trends, you'll find some of the same things. People are going to talk about the 240 million people in China that are going to have passports by 2020, or the 200 million outbound Chinese traveler, and say, oh my God, China is a huge economy, a huge market. We have to be ready for that as a global travel marketplace. You're going to hear about vacation rental and how the younger generation's traveling, and they much more prefer staying outside of hotels, but also in hotels as they graduate over the years. And it's there's a lot of discussion. I'm curious to hear Carla's view, but it would be in the past people have said no, there's a certain type of traveler, they just do this. And over time, we find, no, there's all sorts of travelers, and they do this sometime, and they do this other thing other times. If we look deeper and start to look at, where people travel, then of course it depends on economics, it depends on social considerations, but it also depends on where people are in the world and how comfortable they feel leaving that place and going further away. So overall, people are going further than where they were, and they're seeking greater experiences than what they did in the past, right? All of those trends, and there are many more, are things that are happening all over the world, and they almost seem to follow economic cycles, right? When the economies are booming, people go further, people travel more, people try out new things. When it's less, it's not that they don't travel, they just drive to grandma's. They just, they don't stay at the hotel, they stay with a friend, but they do travel. One of the most interesting things about Expedia is that we have businesses, or across our company, we have businesses in many, many markets. One of our biggest brands is in 80 markets in the world. So when we do research, we're able to really get a very sort of large global perspective. And maybe I'll ask you guys, majority of our brands are in the leisure travel business. So, if you had to guess, how often does a customer travel? What would your answer be? Twice? Remember, we're thinking of all kinds of travel, right? If you went away for the weekend, it counts, right? If you went to visit family, it counts. 5 times. You're actually really close. On average, it's just under 4, right? But what's really surprising about that number is that in different parts of the world, it's really different. Which is the country that you would expect to have the highest number? It's China. China is almost 20% higher than the average. The US is just a few basis points higher than the average. Where do you have the minimum? Can you try and guess? And I'm not talking about, here I'm talking about relatively big markets. I'm not taking into account necessarily a small country in Africa or, countries like that. I'm saying for the countries that have decent sized travel businesses, which one has where people travel the least? You'll be shocked. It's Canada. It's our close neighbors in Canada, right? The reason I give you these data points, and in general, you talk about trends. Economics plays a huge part. You'll be surprised. In most markets, people are looking for a deal, and that number isn't 80% of people. We all think, no, I just want a great experience. I don't care about the deal. Actually, it's not true for travel. In most markets, over 90% of people, when surveyed, will say that the number one thing they're looking for is a deal that they want to break in their budget. They'll tell you that half to 2/3 of the money they spend just goes into their flight, their hotel, and the food. And they want to spend on experiences. So they want to save as much as they can on those other three things so that they can experience new things, because the world has changed. It's, you no longer go and tell people that I took an air ticket and I went here. Well, lots of people travel. But when you do something, you say, I did this and I'm going to post it to Instagram. So people want that, right? Somebody mentioned Germany. There are some unique stats about Germany, but they aren't the ones you might expect. The Germans don't travel the least or whatever. We have a German in the audience that I know here. But their spending patterns are different than the others. And the reason I share some of these data points with you is I want to share with you just the diversity of leisure travel in the world. That it's so different and so unexpected, and it changes as the economies change. So these trends are going to change a lot. In terms of technologies and looking into the future, I am a huge fan of voice as a technology and multimodal voice, voice assisted, voice first, whatever however you think about that. I think it completely changes it changes how we think about travel to a completely conversational pattern. And that's really, really important, and very few players are prepared to be able to do it, because the choices that the customer then has, or in terms of the questions they can ask, are much, much broader than a search box, that people go to on our websites or on the mobile app. There's a Focusrite data point that says by 2020, 50% of all travel searches will be voice, right? So if you're interested in a travel startup, that's a really interesting place to be. And I'll tell you, everybody's interested in a travel startup because we all travel and we're all experts at it. In terms of tools and technologies, the two companies you talked about, we're working with one and we're talking to the other. We literally talk to anyone, right? We have from the oldest analytical tools to the latest, from the oldest rule-based models to the latest deep learning machine models. We have people that are focused on doing that. We do have a unique problem, which is that travel is not a high-frequency use case for leisure travel. So it's not the same thing as some of you might know, the Google used to have, I think 10 years ago, the toothbrush rule, right? Anybody knows what the toothbrush rule is? You can be in any business you want to be as long as the customer touches it twice a day. High frequency, lots of data, leads to a certain type of startup, certain type of business, certain type of analytical tool. If you want to build businesses that help companies like Expedia, right, that are in the leisure travel, we'll see 60% of our customers probably once this year. Now we're talking about a different type of technology. We're talking about a different type of machine learning model. We're talking about a different way of aggregating data or clustering data and finding insights from it. So maybe that's my little bit short answer.
That was very insightful, and I think Canada took a lot of people as surprise. I was just thinking the other way around, that a lot of people from US go to Canada on long weekends, at least up in the Northwest here, for sure.
A lot of Canadians were coming to the US when the Canadian dollar was strong.
Yes.
You see those changes, yep. So lots of similar tones is what Charu talked about. Our core idea behind the marketing or packaging is to chase wherever the customer is moving. And, hopefully some of you have seen Expedia's recent advertising campaign around add-on advantage. I don't know if people have seen that on TV. And what we're really doing there is our research clearly shows that more than half of travelers want buy a air ticket first and then they want to buy the hotel separately or later on. And we have some great partnership with over 500 airlines around the world, hundreds of thousands of hoteliers, and they give us special rates when people buy things together. And the reason that they do that is there's lower cancellation, like there's 40% lower cancellation on them. There's over 20% higher length of stay. So people stay longer. So they're more those customers are more valuable to us, and they're more valuable to our partners as well. So with Add-on Advantage, what we're trying to do is mirror what the customers are asking us for and saying, look, if you want to buy it together, it works. But if you want to buy it separately under certain conditions, we're able to offer you that great pricing as well. So, if you buy a flight and you add a hotel, you get a great price. You might want to add a car rental, you get a great price on that too. And that we know that appeals to a large percentage of our customers. And it frankly showcases the best of our partners' products up front and center to our best customers. Right, a lot of customers that come to Expedia, there's a stat that we've shared in the past, even for the biggest brands that have their products on our platform, less than 1% of our customers search by brand. Right, so they are really quite undecided, and they're not part of the moat that you were talking about. We see the 110 million, and that's a very respectable number and an amazing program, no doubt about it. And Alaska's program is a fantastic program as well. But a lot of our customers travel a few times, and they're not part of these programs. So for us to be able to give them some great pricing, some great experience is truly fantastic for us and our partners, and that's what we're going after with the new marketing campaigns.
Very good. Sometimes many of us who are frequent flyers and have all President's Circle in Hertz and 75K and all those memberships, we don't realize the pain points and the desire of experience for the other people.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are overall the minority, right?
Yeah.
You guys travel a lot. I travel a lot too. I'm the same way. But the average consumer, or majority of the consumers, they are looking for a different experience, and they have a very clear sort of value mapping, if you will, in their mind of what's important to them. And for us, it's super important that we map to that target customer, because that's different from the target customers that go directly to Alaska.com or Marriott.com.
Aman, I want to come to you on a very interesting point. On one side, everybody wants experience, convenience, one touch, mobile, and then there is a lot of compliances and security related, and particularly, you have passport details, credit card details, and so many other personal information. So how do you, try and balance that out, and how do you see technology helping you in there?
Yeah, so clearly it's an active topic. Everyone's talking about this. The security of our customers' data and our employee data, frankly, as well, is paramount importance to us, and I would believe any company in any space that has any sort of secure data. But I do feel that the balance tips one way or the other, right? As an example, maybe a show of hands, how many people use two-factor authentication today on their email? If you would keep your hand up in the air, would you keep your hand in the air if you did it 5 years ago too? So you see the difference there. Almost 50% of people raise their hand. They say they do two-factor. You say, did you do it 5 years ago? You say no. So now you're willing to take that pain to have that security. So I think there's a bit of a misnomer where what we often talk about is security and ease of use as two ends of a spectrum. And actually what it's about is what is the value the customer puts on it. So if you provide two-factor and it's easy and it works well and the customer can use it in an easy way, if they're concerned about it, they will absolutely use it, and 50% of the people here will use it, and they will not feel that it's taking away from ease of use. The issues we have are the biggest issues we have are when those systems that offer more security also take away from the customer experience. And that's the double whammy. Then people immediately go back to the spectrum and say, this is secure, but not easy to use. And for us as a company at Expedia, it's constantly pushing back on that spectrum, refusing to accept it, and saying it is not a spectrum, it is a triangle. And in that triangle, we've got to be on this side and not constantly debating this side. In terms of technology products, there are more and more products, and you guys will be familiar with many of them, that can do things behind the scenes, right? If you compare a simple thing like CAPTCHA 10 years ago, how difficult and irritating was, to today it can be invisible. That's a significant shift in terms of being able to keep systems secure and data secure at the same time offering good ease of use, right? That type of disruption and new opportunity exists in pretty much every security product. There's ton of innovation in the security space because there's a huge need and it's not fixed yet.
Thank you, Aman.
If we think about the areas where we are most challenged as a company, it is in having platforms that make data scientists very productive. And there are lots and lots of parts of that pipeline that are not optimized, not discovered yet. It is, we are still, I would say, 5-10 years into that type of thinking and those type of models being developed in hundreds of companies versus in academics or sort of in academic circles or just a handful of companies. So as more and more companies use them, we have a need for platforms that make large numbers of data scientists productive. And if that's an area people are interested in, that we've, as a company, we've talked to investor groups, we've talked to research teams, and it's a pretty hard problem to solve because the bigger the organization, the more complex the data, the harder it is to discover, the harder it is to build, deploy models and be able to test them. So that would be a wish list item for me.